Hello, this is part 2 in a series of videos on the meaning of 43 vibration. So one way to think about 43 vibration that we did mention in the first part of the series is that it brings the extraordinary into our ordinary lives. This is a phrase that Clarissa Dolphin came up with when we were researching 43 vibration, and I really like it. It captures the feeling of 43 vibration, that people with strong 43 vibration have this motivation in their lives to bring something that's out of the ordinary. Now, this thing, this quality of life that 43 vibration wants to bring into our lives can have different flavors depending on the person. It can be this feeling of something angelic, like a heavenly world that's not in our normal way of life. And we need to bring it into our normal lives. It can be something inventive, something highly progressive, like a futuristic capabilities that we could have in our lives. It can be visionary, it can be liberating. It can also be, you could call it demonic or evil. Like the person takes on a quality that is outside the ordinary in being, let's just call it evil, in a way that most people are not capable of behaving. And the person with 43 vibration has this distance from the normal engagement of life. And that distance and that sense of something deeper, greater, more profound, and something that we can choose. With 43 vibration, there's always this sense of like a hidden gem, a potential, something spectacular, if we will just choose it, if we will just embrace it, and if we will not let ourselves be brought down to the normal, average, mundane range of human experience. So there's often this sense of a more perfect way of life, something more utopian. Not necessarily, because it can also just be something malevolent. Well, for that person, that malevolent life is something that they've also chosen. And with the 43 vibration, there's often this longing for a particular time and place where life was more exceptional, where there were fewer compromises, there was less weakness, and more autonomy to live more fully, like a golden age. You often hear this from people with strong 43 vibration, and it takes different qualities depending on the person's belief system, what they're brought up with, the planets that are involved. It can take on different forms. And with this love of some better way of life, something that's more dynamic, more exceptional, more like a life of the gods, instead of people just being oppressed and run down or bored, it also very often the person with 43 vibration has a kind of disdain or impatience with anything less than this. Not always. Sometimes they just are enthralled with the distance that they have from life, that they're not immersed in the day-to-day activities. They're not identified with their personal existence as much. And that's all there is to it. We talked about the people who have this kind of Zen-like sense of a nothingness. So it can take on different forms. But you will also see the type who is in a kind of rapture with this sense of a more beautiful time and place. And along with that, sometimes a great distaste for anything less than that. Okay, our third person with the extremely strong 43 vibration is Chantal Ackerman. She was also found in the original research by Starlene Breiter. She was the third person with very strong 43 vibration. When we redo the research with a larger database, we still get the same top 3 people. And let's see how 43 vibration works for Chantal Ackerman. Here's her 43 vibration chart. You'll notice 4 planets circled in green. Mercury, Uranus, Venus, Jupiter, all within 6 degrees. Very powerful 43 vibration configuration because there are 4 planets within about 6 degrees. Actually, it's closer to 5 degrees. So very, very powerful. And then there's Neptune and Pluto, which are about 10 degrees away from the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So there's a big stellium of planets going on there. So who was Chantal Akerman? She was a Belgian film director, a screenwriter, an artist, a professor of film. She had a big impact on feminist filmmaking and avant-garde cinema. Akerman was multi-talented and tried several different ways of inventing and experimenting with her work as a film director. And she was hospitalized for depression in 2015 and committed suicide in October 2015. And this sometimes happens with 43 vibration. Not very often, but it does happen. This sense of the hero's journey and of the longing for something more beautiful. There are situations where the person feels like they have not lived up to this potential. And almost ironically, it's often a Jupiterian quality in the 43 vibration that leads to this. Here we have Uranus, Venus, and Jupiter all within 2 degrees. Excuse me. You see Uranus at 19, Venus at 20, Jupiter at 21 degrees. This is buoyant, vibrant, alive. And what happens with these configurations? We saw this in the research on mental illness that Giselle Zeri did, that when people have these exuberant combinations, it's a little bit similar to what happens with suicide rates going up around Christmas time. That at Christmas people feel this joy, this uplifting quality, this sense of magic and celebration. They feel it all around them, but they're not able to fully incorporate it. It's like it's circulating around them, and they're not able to quite touch it. And what happens here is that normally the person would be in touch with the Uranus, Venus, Jupiter, and it would lead to this sense of great joy that the human being is capable of, that we're all capable of, and the person becomes a motivator to lift people up to it. But if there are enough difficult experiences in their lives, traumatic kinds of experiences, frustrations that go on, it's not quite fulfilled, and it can lead to a Great Depression and, in this case, also suicide. Chantal Akerman was very attached to her mother, and apparently her mother's death contributed to this as well. Now, here's a statement from Chantal Akerman. Unbelievable how similar this is to the first 2 people, Mark Matusik and Ian Glenn, that we studied. She says, "We sense time, so we sense ourselves. Face to face with an image, we sense ourselves. We are always on the outside when it comes to the other." Wow. This is unbelievably clear 43 vibration. Again, just like Mark Matusik and Ian Glenn, there's no sense of an identity. That our identity is formed out of our experiences. If we didn't have a sense of time, if we were just engaged in the current moment, there would be no personality. This is a philosophical viewpoint of many people with 43 vibration. Not all of them, but very many. We see it in the top 3 people, that there is experience. Experience is number 1. There's engagement with life. And from that, we build concepts. We build an identity. Why is this belief so common with 43 vibration? Because 43 vibration separates us out from engagement with daily life and gives us a sense of something extraordinary, something you could say is transcendent, something that is outside the daily immersion and engagement with life. excuse me, it's just amazing to me how extremely similar these statements from the top 43 vibration people are. And also when you look at charts of people, when you working with clients, working with friends, working with family, I mentioned in the first video in this series that both Starlene and I have very strong 43 vibration. In our list of highest vibrations, 43 times 3 comes out very strong for both of us. And both of us have this same quality throughout our lives of being a little bit distant from the normal engagement with life. So Ackerman's most significant film, Jeanne Dielman, was released in 1975, often considered one of the greatest examples of feminist filmmaking. And Ackerman used the setting of a kitchen to explore the intersection between femininity and domesticity. The kitchens, alongside other domestic spaces, act as self-confining prisons under patriarchal conditions. Here we see that very common theme with 43 vibration of a distaste, often a disdain for those things that keep us from living a free-spirited, fully empowered life. And at the same time, 43 vibration never allows itself to be put in a box. So, even Ackerman's feminism cannot be put in a box. She does not have a simple and linear sense of things, and Ackerman does not replace one label with another. This is standard. This is the way 43 vibration works. It has a sense of energy, you could call it, of beingness behind the manifest world. So here's a quote of Chantal. The filmmaker has advocated for a multiplicity of expression, explaining that when people say there is a feminist film language, it is like saying there's only one way for women to express themselves. The filmmaker asserted that there are as many cinematic languages as there are individuals. Now, she is not going to relabel women or criticize them if maybe a woman likes to be in the kitchen. You know, everybody is unique. Everybody's different. What's important is that you've chosen it because it's right for you and it's not a prison for you. And you're not doing it because of some social mores and some kind of patriarchal hierarchy. You're doing it because it's what in your soul you're drawn to. This is the philosophy of 43 vibration. She says, I am a woman, I am Jewish, I am a filmmaker, I am a writer. You cannot just put me in one box. That is kind of a mantra of 43 vibration. So in case you're curious, by the way, this is her birth chart. And here's some pictures of her and some quotes. So yeah, I read both of those quotes. So there she is. Okay. Now, in Starlene's original research, she found these top 3 people very, very, very consistent. So I've gone in with a larger database. With the larger database, still found the same 3 people at the very top and wanted to look at the next people to see if we see the same exact themes. And what we find is something a little bit different. As I mentioned before, that not every 43 vibration person has this Zen-like detached sense of self. They always have some detachment from immersion in the normal world and a sense of something extraordinary outside the ordinary spectrum and frame of reference of life. So, the next 3 strong people in the database, the people with the most planets with the smallest orbs in 43 vibration, are Jim Blakey, Gene Franzen, and Manuel Barbarossa. Now, Gene Franzen is borderline for our research. We really have very limited biographical information for him. For the other 2, we have a bit more. So we really don't have a lot of information for him. So it's mainly Jim Blakey and Manuel Barbarossa that we're going to focus on. We have some reasonable biographical information for them. Now, these people are all born earlier than the first three. The first three people, Mark Matusik, Ian Glenn, and Chantal Ackerman, were born between 1950 and 1961. One of them was born in 1957, one in 61, one in 50. They're contemporary people. We can, read interviews about them. People who are contemporary come alive much more. For most of them, we have even interviews that we can watch on places like YouTube and so on. The next people were born in 1945, 1920, and 1765, and the one born in 45 and 1920 are not quite as notable as Barbarossa, who was born back in 1765. So we're dealing with people that are not as contemporary. We don't have the kinds of videos of interviews and other information that we had for the first three people. And in the case of Ian Glenn and Chantal Ackerman, especially, we would not have been able to see as easily the way in which they expressed 43 vibration qualities and traits if we did not have the specific quotations from them. These are personal statements that they made outside of their professional work. So what we found in our research is that sometimes the quality of the vibration becomes very clear when we get a direct view into the mind of the person, when they get interviewed, when they tell us what's motivating them, what's behind the work that they do. It becomes clearer. So nevertheless, we're going to look at these other 43 vibration people and see how they express the qualities of 43 vibration. It's just the nature of research. We're not always going to find really strong people with vibration who are very contemporary and where we have interviews and so on. So let's use these people. They came out on top. We don't want to cherry pick. Jim Blakey comes out very strong. He is reasonably contemporary. He's not quite as famous. So we do have some information about him. Who is he? He was an insurance agent. Why is he famous? Because he's a murderer. He killed a friend, and the body of his friend was found in his basement, and Blakey confesses to the murder. Well, the dead body's found in his basement. I don't know if he's got much more choice than to confess to the murder. It's obvious he killed his friend. So it's like something right out of the movies. People actually do these things. Unbelievable. Now, in addition to having killed his friend, Blakey's business associate and supervisor, a different person, died from a gunshot 5 days after Blakey forged, changing his inheritance to his name. So Blakey goes in to the insurance agent, manages to forge a signature and change the inheritance of his business associate and supervisor from the supervisor's wife to himself, and then 5 days later the guy is found dead. Blakey is extremely suspected of having killed this man just to get the inheritance money. Also amazing is that Blakey's mother died of a gunshot in a similar manner, and he did get an inheritance from her. The guy is willing to murder people for money is the basic thing. It's sociopath to the nth degree. Unbelievable. If we could find out astrologically some of the motivations, some of the planetary configurations, possibly we could develop ways of dealing with these people when they're children to help prevent these things from happening. So here's what we find out. This is his birth chart. In his birth chart, he has the midpoint structure, Saturn conjunct Sun Uranus midpoint. So that's Saturn at 19 Cancer. He is at the midpoint of Uranus at 16 Gemini and Sun at 22 Leo. It's right in between them with a 28-minute orb. If you're a vibrational astrologer or even in other systems of astrology, you know that Saturn Uranus is the planetary combination that's most prone to be disruptive, to be inharmonious. To have Saturn and Uranus in a direct midpoint structure with the Sun in the birth chart is potentially highly disruptive. What we want to see is what vibration is it in? Is there an aspect between Saturn and Uranus that would be the same aspect of Saturn to Sun that would put that very disturbing combination in a particular vibration? That would tell us that that vibration very likely is related to his disturbed personality. His personality that just does not function in a normal, healthy, harmonious way. Now, he was an insurance agent. He was a normal looking guy, sort of a soft looking fellow. So, in many ways, his personality was not disruptive. But obviously, he's capable of violence, of a disturbed personality. He is radically disturbed, radically dysfunctional, and extremely malicious in his behavior. As astrologers in vibration, especially vibrational astrologer, Saturn-Uranus kind of combinations are often involved with these kind of people. Also interesting, he has Pluto at the Mars-Neptune midpoint. If you look down here in the lower right, no orb. No orb, it's exact. Pluto at Mars-Neptune is this compulsive visionary tendency to live in a dream, to live in a fantasy. Why did it turn negative? Why was he not a saint instead of a sinner? Why was he not a visionary artist or something else? We need to look at what vibrations are involved. The Pluto at Uranus-Neptune also shows a tendency to have a poor sense of reality, to be so visionary that the connection with practical, mundane reality can be weakened. All of this turned negative. The dysfunctionality of Saturn, Sun, Uranus, the visionary, he could have been Saturn, Sun, Uranus. Does not have to be negative. He could have done something revolutionary in a positive way. But finding out what vibration is will help give us some hints. And what happens is we select in the series software harmonics pattern listing number 8, and that tells us what vibration these midpoint structures are in. And what we see is that that highly disturbing combination of Saturn at Sun Uranus midpoint is in, it's the, let's see, Saturn, it's the greenish blue, this bluish or color here. I put these two in the same color, are both, one is 11 vibration and 52 vibration. Let's focus on the top one. Saturn at Sun Uranus is 11 vibration, spreading 8 degrees in the 11 vibration chart. So this feature in the software is very handy because it just tells us what vibration is. Wow. Does that ever make sense? 11 vibration is the most unstable vibration. Saturn at Sun Uranus, highly unstable. Put it all together, something goes flipped out very, very easily. Again, we don't know why it turned negative and malicious, but it did. But Saturn at Sun Uranus and 11 vibration is nearly impossible to have a normal, calm, bland sort of life. He has a job as an insurance agent, very bland. He doesn't look wild, rather bland looking fellow. Hidden behind that is a maniac. Saturn at Sun Uranus in 11 vibration. Now where 43 vibration becomes interesting are the two yellow ones. Let's go to the bottom one, Pluto at Mars Neptune. I just filled this in with yellow to show that these two are both in 43 vibration. This Pluto at Mars Neptune is in 43 times 2 vibration with only a very, very small orb. We'll look at the 43 vibration. We will see it. There's 43 times 2 vibration means there will be an opposition involved between Pluto, Mars, and Neptune. Now that's interesting. This compulsive visionary quality vibrating to 43 times 2 means it's taking him out of the normal engagement with life. It's giving him a sense of a Superman or Superwoman or an angel or a devil outside the normal scope. He becomes fully absorbed into this sense of a destiny beyond the normal engagement of life. And also his Saturn at Sun Mars is also 43 vibration, showing that he's got some kind of serious focus. He plans these things out. He works at them. He's tenacious. He's focused on some mad, crazy delusion. So 43 vibration gives the freedom, gives the distance, gives this sense of standing outside the norm where you do not have to be part of the normal way of life. So, the 43 vibration detachment from a personal perspective is dangerous if the person is not grounded in a strong belief in the power of goodness. This sense of a Zen kind of singularity in which our personalities develop from what we engage ourselves in can incline the person to operate without constraints or even behave in the negative kind of ways that Blakey behaves. Here's the key point. 43 vibration very often has a kind of God complex, a feeling like they are ordained by God. They are ordained with some special purpose. They are anointed. They are the special ones. They are the ones leading the sheep out of their situation. They are special. And here what happens is it's turned completely malicious, where Blakey feels that he is allowed, he is given this dispensation, that he deserves this money, that it is rightfully his, and that these people can be subjects for whatever whim and purpose he has. He has the power to kill, just like God has the power to kill. He is not constrained by the normal conventions. So 43 shares this with 13 vibration. With 43 vibration, it's even a little more dangerous than 13 vibration because you often don't sense it. It's like some hidden capacity within the person. You don't feel it in their personality as much. They have to tell you about it. You have to talk to them. You have to see what they're thinking that they have. It's more philosophical and abstract that they have this sense of a dispensation to do something outside the norm. And what we find out from Jim Blakey is it can turn totally negative. And here's the 43 vibration chart, and there's Pluto at the bottom of the chart wheel at 21 Libra in the third house, opposition to Mars and Neptune. Extremely tight configuration. Neptune at 19 Aries, Mars at 23 Aries, Pluto at 21 Libra, right at that midpoint. That midpoint structure has an 18-minute orb. This is all in the 43 vibration chart. And remember that Pluto at Mars, Neptune in the natal chart has no orb. That orb of 0 gets multiplied by 43, and it's only 18 minutes. Rounded off, it grows a little bit. An extremely powerful configuration. What this tells us is that if somebody has a mad visionary motivation, crazy mad visionary motivation, Pluto at Mars and Neptune, you cannot get more crazy mad visionary motivation than Pluto at Mars Neptune. If that's vibrating in 43 or 43 times 2, 43 times 4, wow, this person just feels they are entitled, they are anointed ones to take life, to do whatever they please. So this is one of the things behind Blakey. He also has the Saturn at Sun Mars. They're all conjunct, 23, 25, and then late 25 degrees of Aries. Saturn at Sun Mars, that he works all this out. These are not crimes of sudden impulse. They're not crimes of lack of impulse control. He doesn't go into a temper tantrum and shoot somebody while he's angry. He plots this out. He works through it. He analyzes the situation. He works at it step by step, stone by stone, and follows through and executes the entire thing. Saturn at Sun Mars. In 43 vibration, all 5 planets, Pluto, Mars, Neptune, Saturn, Sun, all vibrating at 43 vibration, involving 2 midpoints in the natal chart. This is extreme. This is extraordinarily extreme, and we get the extreme result. What's fascinating, or one thing that's fascinating with this, is that when we interpret these planetary configurations of vibrational astrology, everything in the chart has a positive purpose. It has a positive potential. But of course, not everybody is positive. And when we look at somebody as malicious and destructive, as Jim Blakey, we see how what would otherwise could be positive, and anything in a birth chart could be, can turn completely malicious. And this detachment and distance from engagement in the personal life, this impersonal quality of 43, can turn very evil, and it's dangerous because the person has that detachment. So as we say here, I have written on the left side of the slide, extreme behavior requires extreme planetary configurations. And these midpoint structures are almost exact. They're in the natal chart. The orbs, the aspects are very, very small. It's an extreme pattern for extreme behavior. Also interesting, and we've seen this over and over again, is that something that's light and bouncy will not necessarily remove the negative tendencies. So he has Uranus at Sun, Jupiter midpoint, 5-minute orb. This Uranus over here, I put it in green. It's not part of the planetary aspect configuration, but there's this midpoint configuration where Uranus is at the midpoint of Sun. Uranus is at Sun, Jupiter midpoint, Jupiter, Saturn midpoint, and Mars, Jupiter. It's at the midpoint of Jupiter and the Sun, Saturn, and Mars. This gives power. This gives a organizational ability. It gives innovation. It gives the ability to motivate, to move, to change, and to succeed. It doesn't have to be for a good purpose. And that's what he did. And he got away with it many times before he was finally caught. A review of a book about Blakey. So a book was written about him by a fellow named William Sonsky. The name of the book is Fatal Ambition, Greed and Murder in New England. And here's a review of the book. Oh, I forgot to give the source. I think this was on Amazon.com. I apologize for forgetting to put the source of this quote. But in the review, the fellow says, I read this book a couple of times because I knew Jim Blakey very well. And Mr. Sonsky captures Blakey's personality amazingly. Blakey's cocky demeanor that Sonsky portrays in the book is dead on. Jim once told me, I have no conscience. I could paint a barn with your blood. Okay. So this fellow who knew Jim Blakey is saying that in this biography, this written by a fellow named William Sonsky, that Sonsky really captured the essence of who Jim Blakey was. Very cocky, very arrogant. I could paint a barn with your blood. A kind of striking image, a raw, vivid image of what he can do. And this arrogance, this pride, this sense of entitlement, this sense that he can take life if he wants to, no problem, is the power of 43 vibration. 43 vibration has this power to follow an unusual journey, a hero's journey. And here we see it being done maliciously. For some reason, Jim Blakey has lost his compassion, his love, his ability to empathize. He's become a total sociopath. 43 vibration does not help with breaking the tendency to be a sociopath. We're hoping that there's something in his upbringing and in his 9 vibration, that something will help him develop a normal sense of empathy and rapport so that he does not become a sociopath. But one thing we're learning from this is that 43 vibration can turn completely sour. It can be a configuration of the saint or the sinner. It can go either way. Usually it's somewhere in between those extremes. Okay, but this extreme case sampling study is giving us a deeper appreciation of 43 vibration. And what Clarissa said early on in that first research project that Starlene was doing, that we were helping her with, bringing the extraordinary, bringing something out of the box, bringing something that people are usually too timid or would not consider as a possibility. Even the Zen-like approach, I'm calling it Zen-like or Buddhist or Hindu, whatever you want to call it, or metaphysical or spiritual view, that we are something other than our engagement in life and our personality. It's a kind of bravery, a kind of strength in doing that, and that those top 3 people did not have to be engaged in a philosophical discussion. This is on their minds. This is how they work. This is a top priority in the way that they work. So, and also complex and a bit frightening is that even the most sociopathic criminals, such as Jim Blakey, often exhibit fairly normal range of personality traits, interests, and behaviors. So he seems like a fairly normal guy. He's an insurance agent, while simultaneously engaging in the most atrocious and malicious crimes imaginable. It's the reality of it. And astrologically, we see this. We see how these planetary configurations can be adjusted just a little bit to turn very malicious, or could be adjusted a little bit to become positive. That loss of empathy that's involved here is the critical ingredient that enables him to become such a sociopath. And to get an idea of how complex some of these people are, Blakey was involved in politics in a campaign. He was a campaign aide for George McGovern. So this person who dedicates time and energy to a political campaign, you may know that George McGovern, he ran for political positions in Massachusetts where Jim Blakey lived. And McGovern is an extreme liberal, as we call it here in the United States. He was against the Vietnam War. He was for increasing assistance to the needy. He was criticized for being overly idealistic. So this person, Jim Blakey, who is a campaign aide for George McGovern, also goes out and murders people for financial gain. And the consistent thread here can be that society's not working the way it should. Society's unfair. Society's allowing a few individuals to accumulate wealth. It shouldn't be this way. And there again, we see that 43 vibration tendency to idealize a kind of world, a kind of utopia, where the rich are not getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, where people are not accumulating all of this wealth, and that he has the right to take that wealth for himself, because his right to do that is stronger than your right to live. This is the twisted sociopathic mind of Jim Blakey. But there's the consistent theme there, that If life isn't right, 43 vibration can feel completely free to set it right and without regard to what other people may think of it. They feel like they stand beyond the norm. There's a tendency for 43 vibration to be a little bit arrogant or a lot arrogant. Not always, but typically there's a sense of being special and beyond the norm. And that in itself can easily become arrogant. At a future time, someone can read a book about Blakey to better understand the relationship of Blakey's birth chart to his personality and behavior. So we could do more work, is what I'm saying here. We could look at transits to his 11 vibe, 43 vibe, at the time he forges these documents, at the times he commits these murders. We could do some more research. We could read the book. We could track the dates and times. What I'm expecting is at the time when he forges these documents, when he murders people, we're going to see transits. If you take the 11 vibration chart, at the time that he engages in this criminal behavior, compare the planets at that time with his birth chart, 11 vibration to 11 vibration, 43 vibration transits to 43 vibration natal, you will see a lot of overlap. This is what we've seen over and over again. I did not do that additional research, to buy the book, to read through it, to do all, it can be done. So, just to mention that, very often, there's more and more research can be done, of course. One more thing. Let's see, we're running a little bit late here, 41 minutes. Let's see if I can squeeze this in. I've got 3 more slides. This will be a long video, but let me just add this in, that, where is it here? That 7 vibration is also involved with Jim Blakey. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to continue this in part 3 about 7 vibration, because I'm realizing this will take probably 10 or 15 minutes to go over this as well. So let's put this off for the 3rd video. What we've covered here in the 2nd video is 43 vibration in the chart of Jim Blakey and how those midpoint structures in the birth chart, direct midpoint structures in the birth chart, vibrating at 43, are telling a lot about the life and the mind of Jim Blakey. Okay, my friends, we will continue with part 3. Thank you for listening. God bless. Namaste.